Tell me about that promotion process.
It's tough. You know, you're emailing all these news networks, they don't want to hear from you. They're sick of hearing from you. I called them up. I said, listen, hey, this is Will La Salle. They're like, did you just call here? I'm like, yeah, we don't want your story. I said, well, I'll try you tomorrow. Hang up the phone on me. It's rejection. It's just learning to just overcome any obstacle. You got to learn to adapt. If you want it bad enough, you'll work for it or you'll just make an excuse. I emailed them every day for 3 years. I mean, it was insane. My wife was like, you know you're going to get in trouble. This is basically harassment.
Welcome back to New York's Business Podcast. My name is Jacob Restituto. I'm the host and owner of Restituto Media, a full-service photo and video company here based on Long Island. Today I'm with Wilfred La Salle from La Salle Productions, producer, director, CEO of La Salle Productions. So thank you so much for taking the time, taking a bit of a drive down here to meet with me here. So appreciate you, man. Appreciate meeting you and you taking the time. So looking forward to hearing your story and this conversation.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. So, yeah, man, I started this company back in 2019, and I just had a dream. I had a vision of what I wanted to create. And what I realized in the moment was your dreams don't have to make sense to anyone else but you. You don't have to have anyone else's permission to pursue what it is that you love to do. And so we began making these films back in 2020. I produced my first film called Hilo, followed by Hilo 2, Braves, Hilo 3, Oculus, and now Security Guard, which is my 6th film.
Talk to me about this. So you work in security in general, like that's
Yes.
your day job at the moment.
My day job is armed security. I moonlight pretty much, yeah.
So then talk to me about that. So how do you go from armed security to wanting to be a producer and making your own movies?
Well, the job allows me a lot of flexibility. So it's a thing where if I have to take off, I can always switch. So, but before that, I was an NYPD school safety agent. I was also a New York City correction officer. So I did about 17 years with the city. A lot of people don't know that. They just think I was a school safety agent, but I was also a New York City correction officer, one of the boldest. And it allows me a lot of flexibility. The job allows me to finance everything I have to do with funding. I don't have any investors. Simply, I'm just an ordinary man trying to do extraordinary things.
So tell me a little bit about that. So I heard that in an interview that you did previously that you fund everything yourself.
Yes.
Essentially, does that mean you just sock it away in the savings account and then at one point when you have enough, you fund the movie, or what does that mean?
I pay as I go. So before I started learning how to use the cameras, I used to hire different cinematographers, and that obviously got costly. And my wife was like, you have to learn how to actually film your own films. And so I was like, okay, I got to learn this stuff. Bought $10,000 worth of equipment, didn't know how to use any of it. And then she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, you told me to learn, so I'm going to learn. You know, watch YouTube University and learn how to actually use and operate a camera.
I use that quote a lot. Not many people know that quote. That's a good one, man. Yeah. I went to YouTube University too. Yeah. It's funny.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where you just learn. You learn, you have to cut costs where you can. You invest in the cinematography. The locations, I pretty much ask different local businesses if I can shoot there. And they pretty much oblige to let us do it. And it just became less costly than having to pay a cinematographer. Now, the cast, they don't get paid monetarily. They get paid through acting reels. And what that does is it affords them the opportunity to shop for agents. Let's say if they're working on a background production, such as like Power, right? Then they're doing background work. They're never gonna be seen, they're never gonna have the exposure. So what Salle Productions does is we create a platform for them where they can showcase their talents, where they can be seen, they can be heard, but most importantly, it's a place where they can act.
So for people that aren't super familiar with the industry and how that works, essentially, so what you're saying is for people that are in like a background of a movie, a TV show or movie, but they want to be the main actor, they don't necessarily have the opportunity to create a reel where they could pitch to producers and be like, this is what I can do as a background person, correct? And you're saying you give them the opportunity. They don't necessarily get paid, but they get paid an exposure where they can say, hey, this is you give them an opportunity to say, hey, this is who I am. Correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. So one of the things is that when you do background work, there's nothing against it, right? Most people do it because they need the money. But the problem is they'll only see you as background. Say, for instance, I do security. Let's say if I'm working for Kevin Hart, right? I'm doing armed security for Kevin Hart. And he only sees me as his security guard. And if I step outside the box and say, hey, listen, Kev, by the way, I'm a filmmaker, he's probably going to say, listen, man, I see you as this, right? So it allows them to step outside of that. You don't want to get typecast. It allows them to have that freedom to say, okay, look, I can do this. And so I think that's very important for them, right? If they are able to step outside of that and show an agent a reel of what we've done with no budget and the quality of work, that may open up an opportunity for them to now have a speaking role, a principal role, and say, hey, this guy is more than background. He can do more than that. And that just creates a level of opportunity for them that we want to create.
That's really interesting. It's a unique format for a business, and I appreciate that business model. Take this the right way, please, but it's a bit of that scrappy kind of business model where it's like the traditional business model is, okay, you got to do this, 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 and this, and it works, but it doesn't, like, it's hard sometimes to get into. So creating your own business model that works for you and works for other people, I think is the sign of a true entrepreneur.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I want to paint a little bit more of a picture of who you are as a person. Well, I want to hear a little bit more about what you're doing today. So I want to hear about the armed security. I want to hear about the armed the armed school agent essentially.
It's called the security guard.
Okay.
Yeah, school safety agent.
School safety. Yeah. Okay. And then the corrections. Tell me a little bit about all of that.
So I worked for the NYPD School Safety Division for over 15 years. And what people don't understand is we're unarmed. We're working in urban school districts, which are high crime areas. They're scanning metal detectors, and we don't have any weapons. We don't even have mace, no tasers, nothing. So that becomes a little bit difficult, right? And you're dealing with a kid who tells you, hey, listen, I'm not going through scanning. He's 250 pounds, he plays football. You know, it creates a different level of challenges. But fast forward, I left. I needed more money. So, right? That's why we do these things, because we want more money. And I became a New York City correction officer. And that was gladiator school. A lot of people don't realize that everyone should work at least in a jail in their life, at least one time in their life. I'll tell you why. You're always one decision away from a totally different life. And that's what it taught me. It reinforced that for me. It was like, okay, look, these guys are behind here because they made one decision, and that one decision cost them their freedom. So I think it's essential in learning that aspect and kind of stepping outside of that and saying, okay, look, I do this is the result of that. And so I did that for 17 years, left the city, got into armed security, and ever since then, I've just been moonlighting, doing different work. It allows me a lot of flexibility to do what I do. As you know, taking off time to be on podcasts or promoting the film on media networks. That's pretty much what it's been for me.
I just want to touch on what you said about the jail. Essentially, it's really interesting. It's a humbling thought that like everybody's one decision away from ending up there, and yet it's easy to say, oh, I can't. How does somebody get there? I could never see myself, but it's true. You know, one extra drink when you're driving, or one texting and driving, or doing anything. I mean, outside of driving, but one decision away, and it can cost anything. You know, everything. Yeah. So let's talk about La Salle Productions. When did you said that started? What year?
2019 we started.
So tell me about that. How did you start it? What was the first production that you did? How did you meet people to even get started? Tell me about that starting process.
So most of the people that I knew, I didn't know any actors. So I had like friends. I was like, hey, listen, I'm doing this film. I have this crazy vision. And they were like, okay, we're gonna go out to Shelter, Connecticut. Didn't know how to use a camera, so I hired this production company, went out to Shelter, Connecticut, and we filmed Hilo. Now I had no idea what I was gonna do. I was literally like, okay, something's gonna happen here. We're gonna make this happen. It was like just seeing what stick, what didn't stick. And fast forward, we ended up making the film. It was 10 minutes and 44 seconds. My wife thought it was more like a music video. She was very hard on it. I thought visually it looked good, but when people saw it, they thought it was an extended trailer. And I was like, okay, cool, I gotta get better, right? Take constructive criticism, you take those things and you put it in your toolbox and you just kind of create this level of, okay, I gotta progress. And that's what it became. It just became this progression of an obsession of making films.
Where did the storylines come from?
A lot of them just came to me. So Hilo, I was actually in the gym working out and the visions just started coming to me.
For people that aren't super familiar with it, can you give it a little like backstory on maybe like 2 or 3 sentences for each of the productions done so far?
So Hilo, the Hilo trilogy is about 2 corrupt cops. There's a clown gang in the film. They kind of go on this arc of being corrupt in this city, and they pay the price. The film Graves is a heist movie, similar to Heat, Den of Thieves. Oculus is my first sci-fi movie. It pretty much touches on, like it has that, I don't know if you watch The Boys, but it has that Homelander with lasers in the eyes. It's pretty out there. Security Guard is really grounded. It's the first film that we've made that touches a wider audience because of the issue of mass school shootings and gun violence as a whole. So that's pretty much the basis of the films. But yeah, I was in Zara. I saw this red leather jacket. My wife is like, there's no way you're wearing that thing. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna wear it. I'm gonna get it. If they have my size, I'm buying it. Bought the jacket. Didn't know what I was gonna do with it, but some correlation I had in my mind was, this jacket somehow relates to the film. And then it just as I went with it, it just came to me.
Which film was that?
This is Hilo.
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
first film. Yeah.
The first film. That's really interesting, man. So now you're in the process of promoting the security guard.
Yes.
So tell me about that promotion process.
It's tough. You know, you're emailing all these news networks. They don't want to hear from you. They're sick of hearing from you. I just told you. I called them up. I said, listen, hey, this is Will La Salle. They're like, did you just call here? I'm like, yeah. She's like, we don't want your story. I said, well, I'll try you tomorrow. Hang up the phone on me. It's rejection, but rejection is just redirection.
You were saying though that you've called some of these major networks every day for 3 years.
Oh, every day for 3 years. Every day. I emailed them every day for 3 years. I mean, it was insane. My wife was like, you know, you're going to get in trouble. This is basically harassment. I'm like, well, I'm still going to email them because listen, I know what I have, right? And if I can pave the way for people to show them that resistance breaks resistance, persistence breaks resistance. That's what it comes down to. If I can show other people what's possible, now mind you, I didn't have a PR person. People were coming to me like, wait, like, where's your PR person? I'm like, you're looking at him. This is the whole team right here. And then the other PR people were blown away. They're like, wait, you've been waiting to get on this show for 3 years. I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, they shook my hand and they were like, well, we got to give it to you, man. I mean, you're something else. I said, well, tell my wife that one. she'll believe you. But
yeah.
It's just learning to just overcome any obstacle, right? Any obstacle that comes your way, you got to learn to adapt. If you want it bad enough, you'll work for it, or you'll just make an excuse. That's just what it comes down to, you know?
So tell me a little bit of what you're actively doing for promotion. What does that look like? What does it look like to promote a film?
Going on different podcasts, of course. Reaching out to different news networks, local newspapers. You're talking about promoting it on social media, having the cast promote it, having shirts, signage, everything you can think of. Going to these political events, networking. It's a lot of work. A lot of people don't see the work that goes into this stuff. They just see the finished product and they think that, oh, okay, yeah, this is easy. I make it look easy, but it's not. It's a lot of grind. It's pretty much every day you're doing things that the normal person doesn't think is worth it, even if it's something small, whether it's driving 2 hours to be on a podcast and tell your story. Those are the small things that really matter to me, right? Because then not only that, I'm getting to share my story with you. I'm getting to share my story with your audience. And even if, let's just say you have 20 subscribers, that's 20 more people I can reach. That's how I look at it.
Sure, absolutely. So I want to circle back to the way you run the business of the La Salle Productions with the creating opportunities for reels for the actors and stuff. Can you dive a little bit more into the business aspect of it? So like you said, the actors don't get paid, but they get the real opportunity. What about like the rest of the people that help out? If there is anybody that helps out, I'm curious about how the actual business is run.
So when I tell you we do this with no budget, we do this with no budget.
So I want to speak on that though, because I think some people think that the budget is a
when they see the finished product, they think we have a $120 million budget.
Well, either that, but also like, oh, I want to do this too, but I don't have any budget, so I can't do it. And I'd love for you to break that barrier.
So what I do is I pretty much invested in myself. Like I said, I taught myself how to use the camera. I don't have a crew. The crew is myself and any of the cast members who are not in those scenes, whether they're holding a camera or watching the tripod or holding a boom mic or being a set supervisor. They take on those roles besides acting. So when I tell you it's a family, it's kind of this buddy system where we're doing this. Now,
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right, you're not in this scene this week. We do the schedule. Okay, I need you to help out with this. Okay, no problem. A lot of these guys, they are really dedicated to their craft. And when you're doing something, you know how important money and time is to people, right? I make sure that I value that. I make sure that they understand that I respect their time and I never want to waste their time. So what we do is we create a family. And the family aspect is basically, okay, look, we're going to do this. We're going to get on big networks. I'm going to promote you guys. You're going to get reels. You're going to get agents. A lot of the guys who've been on my set have worked on bigger sets because of my reels. They've gotten jobs on Power. I don't know if you watch Power. They've gotten jobs on Law and Order. I mean, they've gotten principal roles. And that has put them in opportunities to now be seen. Now, when you're creating different films, not everyone can go with you, right? Not everyone can continue to work for no pay, right? Let's be honest, right? But they understand that this is bigger than money, right? They see the opportunity, they value what they do, they value the work that they put in. A lot of the actors that you see, they put in a lot of time to perfect their craft. And so when they do that, I have a certain duty and obligation to make these films as great as I can possibly make them. Because they're coming on and dedicating their summers. They're giving up vacations. They're giving up time with their family. They're commuting 2-3 hours. They're coming from LA, Pennsylvania, Seattle, you name it. And so the business aspect becomes, if I can help them get the exposure that they can receive, and one day someone says, hey, you know what, I want that actor. Or you know what, I want this. We just secured a major deal. I can't announce it, but we will be announcing it at the premiere, which is, it's basically revolutionized independent filmmaking, which is our mantra.
Really?
Yeah, it's never before been done. So that announcement's gonna be made at the premiere for the cast. I'm excited for them to really see what we've done and just what we've done. In
the cast doesn't know about it.
The cast doesn't know about it.
Oh, wow, okay. Premiere is March 13th, correct?
March 13th.
So tell them about the premiere.
We do this every year. Every year we have a screening. We usually have the cast come, usually exclusive for the cast. Sometimes they'll bring a family member, depending on the venue and the capacity of what they can hold. And they're able to see the next film that's coming forward, the trailers, and they see their work. And what I do is, since I've seen the film so many times, I watch them. I'm watching them watch their work, and that's the best feeling. You know, I'm not a parent, but it's almost that same feeling of watching that. I can only say that when you see them watching them, I'm like, oh, yeah, he's into it, man. I love that. For them to see all the hard work that they put in, all the hours. Because people see something like, you know, they watch the film, and they don't know that that scene took 3-4 hours to make. And that's the beauty of filmmaking, is that you can create anything you want. It can be whatever you want it to be. And that's what I think I love the most about filmmaking, is that I can take anything and make it into something spectacular.
Sure.
You know?
Talk to me a little bit about the process of the filmmaking. So you have an idea, a concept. You also said that you're looking to do, I don't know if you said this on camera or off camera, but you're looking to do 9 films in 9 years.
Right, we're up to 6 now.
Which is pretty impressive, getting a film out every year. So tell me a little bit, so you have a concept, an idea, where do you start from there?
So I have a basis of what we do. So I write my script. So the premiere is in March, right? I start writing my script around, I would say like May. I start writing the script. The script is usually done by like June. Do it in a month. And then we start filming June up until November. And you're talking about 6 months. We only film on weekends. And then I'm editing from November till about March, February. So you can see how much this time takes up. My wife kills me. She tells me, I'm a prisoner in the house. You've made this house into an office. And I'm editing for hours and hours. I mean, you're talking about special effects. You're talking about reshoots. If I have to go out and get B-roll, I have to take the drone out and get, coverage. It's time consuming. The actors move on to other projects, but I'm stuck really working on this. So it takes me a whole year to make one film, which usually on a big production, it takes them 3 years. We've been able to pump out a film since 2020 to 2025. So every year, so we got Hilo 2, Graves, Oculus, Security Guard, The Veteran, Lucy, and Gravestone. Those are the next films to move forward.
The Veteran's coming out next?
Veteran's next after Security Guard. You're going to see the trailer and you'll see the first look. We already filmed that. Yep.
And it's already filmed?
The film's not filmed, the trailer is, yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I know, I film the trailer usually before the movie. It's weird, that's just the way I operate. But I'll tell you a good story about that. We were in Times Square filming this. And the actor looked like an actual homeless person, about a homeless veteran. He has a dog, he loses his family, he's a war vet. And the people who were walking by were filming us. They were outraged. They were like, how dare you film this guy? And I had to stop filming. I go up to the lady and I said, listen, he's a homeless person. He's actually an actor, but we're raising awareness on the homeless. I said, look, you and I walk past these people every day and they're invisible to society. I said, the moment I put a camera on him, he's no longer invisible. She was like, are you serious? I said, yeah, he's an actor. I say, I don't want him to break character. She apologized to me. I said, look me up. This is what I do. She was like, I'm so sorry. I said, no, good. I want you to be outraged. That's what this film is supposed to do. So Security Guard is touching on mass school shootings. But with The Veteran, we're touching on the opioid crisis, the homeless epidemic, and mental health, which are 3 big things in New York and all over the world. And I felt it was needed to do that, especially amongst our veterans who are left behind. So I'm touching on real social issues. Lucy is a film on autism. It's about a young girl. She gets diagnosed, she's on the spectrum. The parents blame themselves for having her very later in life. And they blame themselves for even the foods that they were eating, like what contributed to it. And autism is on the rise. So I know a lot of friends of mine, they have autistic kids. So we're gonna approach this film from a very delicate standpoint. It's gonna make sure that it's really it's going to touch people in a different way because it's something that's never been done. And then Gravestone is a prequel to my 2022 film called Graves.
Very interesting,
Yes.
man.
Yes.
I'm excited. So where can people see these things? So you film them, you produce them,
Yes.
you edit them, you promote them.
Yep.
Where do they go after the fact?
Apple TV, Amazon
Really?
Prime, Tubi. We're working with NBC to get on Peacock. We're going to be working
Really?
with, yeah, we're working. You got to sign a contract. So the way that works is you have to get a lawyer, you get an aggregator, you get onto their content acquisitions team. They usually don't want to hear from you.
Break that down a little bit more for people that aren't like,
To get on all these networks?
yeah, like talking about aggregators and like break those terms down for people that aren't super familiar.
So a lot of people, so if you want to get on Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Tubi, any of those networks, you can go through what's called an online distributor. They have many of them. They have FilmHub, they have Bitmax, and they have Quiver.
Okay.
Or you could submit the film directly to Amazon through Video Prime Direct.
Okay.
You have to have captions, assets, they do an inspection, what's called QC, quality control. Takes anywhere from 4 to 9 weeks to get your film live on the network. If there's any issues, they kick it back. With NBC, it's different for indie filmmakers. They don't want independent films unless you have an attorney that's going to aggregate for you, be that middle person to speak to their content acquisitions team, which is what we're working on now to get us on Peacock. Now, Paramount Plus, CBS owns Paramount Plus. We're doing the same. So we're really revolutionizing independent filmmaking from a whole different standpoint.
Can you talk about the cost of that?
My wife's gonna kill me if she watches this interview, but it's expensive. But I believe
Is like the Apple TV one, is that expensive?
no. So you pay. So FilmHub, what they do is they have different. So different distribution companies have different tiers of what they charge, right? Different levels. They have Premium, Pro. So with FilmHub, they take 30% of the earnings. The rest
Really?
is yours. Yeah, the rest is yours. They're an online distributor. That's what most people use. Quiver, I think they take 50%, and Bitmax, you have to pay $3,500 up front, and then everything else is yours. To me, the best one is Bitmax, I'll be honest with you, because you go live faster. You go live in 3 weeks, opposed to the other guys, obviously because it's more money. But yeah, when it comes to the aggregators, yeah, you're spending money, but you do this because you love it.
Oh, sure. I'm curious to see where the industry goes, because so what it reminds me of is I'm a musician also,
Right.
and 10 years ago when I first started a little longer than that, over a decade ago when I started releasing music, I noticed when we first started releasing, it was very, very similar to exactly what you're saying. You would say, hey, I have this song, this album, and I want to release it on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever the case, iTunes at the time, right?
Right.
And the options that they had back then were these platforms where they distribute it, but they would take a royalty. They take 30% of the royalties.
Right.
Or they took no royalties, but you had to pay up front. Both for the independent artists weren't super beneficial because, like, I mean, granted, like most people ended up going with the royalty one because like they weren't making any money anyway. So like, what's 30% of $7 that you made? It's not life changing.
Right.
The alternative though is where they took zero royalties, but it was expensive up front. But it was like, okay, if I'm not making much money off the bat anyway, how do I justify this, right? That was 10 years ago. Now the industry completely shifted because the independent artist is tremendously on the rise. And the whole industry has shifted to this model of one flat fee, no royalties taken at all, and it's typically unlimited releases, where back then you used to pay per release. So it sounds exactly like what you just said originally, and it's shifted. So I'm really curious to see over the next 5, 10, 15, however many years, especially now that cameras are getting cheaper and cheaper. And back 10, 15 years ago, a really nice camera would be 15 grand, like that filmmaking camera. I mean, we're talking, the average filmmaking, you could spend 100 grand on like a red camera, like, whether you're using film, like actual productions and stuff like in Hollywood. I don't know if you even need that anymore. You know what I mean? You can make some incredible stuff with what you were saying earlier. With
You
the
do
Sony
need it for
and stuff.
Netflix though. So Netflix has Netflix-ready cameras. I can't get on Netflix currently because my camera, I guess I have the Sony A7 III. They want a Red Gemini. They want FX6. They want to know you're serious about filmmaking, which I don't blame them. So like Netflix, that's a whole different level. You only get a 2-year distribution deal, and they have to literally critique your copyright. Everything has to be. I mean, you still have to have copyright for everything else, but they're very strategic on what they do. We'll get there after the 9th film. If I decide to come back and do another film, I'll have to invest and buy another camera. But it's you do this because you love it, right? You're a musician because you love this stuff. This is your passion. You love it. I always tell people it's a labor of love. I don't make independent films to be rich. I make it because I love the art.
Sure.
I love what it does. It brings people together. I'm uniting people. I'm bringing people together on an issue that has divided them for years, right? Mass school shootings, gun violence. Regardless of where you swing politically, the film goes down the middle. Now, a lot of people don't understand. They're like, why'd you do this? I said, well, because I didn't want to divide the audience. Not only that, I don't want to divide people further, right? We're going to talk about the Democratic Party. We're going to talk about the Republican Party. We're going to give them both equal platforms to discuss their stances on guns, right? The Republicans they want to protect the gun rights and their Second Amendment rights, and they don't want their Second Amendment rights being infringed on. The Democratic Party wants stricter gun laws and stricter mental health checks. So we're going to explore that, but the film's going to go down the middle. And I want it to be an equal forum where people can start having these honest conversations and say, okay, we both want change. Whatever that change looks like, we both want the same things, maybe in different ways, but we both agree or would love to agree to the fact that something needs to change.
I admire that one thing you just said, where you said, "I don't want to divide people further."
Yeah.
Which is interesting because typically art swings in either direction, right? You know, or any direction. It swings, but it typically swings in a specific direction, trying to push a specific agenda. Typically, because people have their own beliefs and their own systems, and they want to share their beliefs in their systems. But it's very rare that artists or producers, however you define yourself as, want to bring people together. And it's usually like, hey, this is what I believe, and I want to share it with you what I believe, or how I see the world, or how I see this issue. But very rarely it's like, hey, let's see how we can see this issue together.
Right.
And that's a really interesting take on that. I admire that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I mean, listen, religion and politics just divides people, right? If I'm being honest. And so I wanted to unite everybody on the issue. And regardless of who you are, if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, if you're an independent, it doesn't matter. This film has something for everyone. And I think that was very important for me to make the film, right? I think that if we look at it from a whole different standpoint, parents, right? You got all these mass school shootings. Parents shouldn't be planning their children's funerals. And so I wanted to just shed light on that. I thought it was very personal, it was my duty, and I felt it was my calling to make this film.
Yeah, very interesting. We were just talking, I believe, about the distribution. So you say people can watch them on the
Apple TV, Tubi, Amazon Prime currently. We have some on Fubo TV, Foursome, a couple other networks that are on there. I mean, they pitch to a various group. Every month they pitch to different networks and then they pick them up. That's the way the distribution works. It's say licensed, and then it'll tell you, all right, you have to actually check the network to make sure it's actually there. Sometimes it's not.
So then you were saying you use an aggregator for NBC and for CBS?
An attorney. Yep. For those, you can't use an online aggregator.
Okay.
There's no way to get on there. You either have to use a lawyer or someone who has a connection with NBC.
How long does that process typically take?
I'm still in the process now. I mean, listen, I had 3 lawyers that were on it, like three attorneys that were on it, like fighting with NBC. NBC's like, it's a matter of who you get in contact with, right? It's a matter of who wants the film. So we do have someone coming down for the premiere. I can't say who. That may be the in for Peacock, which is another way we're trying to work around things. So yeah, we're hoping that works out too, but there's still a big announcement to make on the premiere.
So when is the security guard available now, or after March 13th it'll be available?
So once I make sure everything's corrected, if there's any errors, any audio issues, which is I always like to look at the film hundreds of times, make sure it's perfect. And once it's done, then I have to submit it, and it'll probably take I would say about 6 weeks. Probably submit it by like late March.
So they can see the first 5 films on those other platforms?
Yes, they can.
So you mentioned the first one your wife called the extended music video.
Yeah, you will.
Tell me.
She's hard on my film.
So tell me. But you know what? It's because they love you.
Yeah, I know. She's like, I don't know. I don't. Oculus. She hates Oculus. My wife. Oh my God. She's like, the sci-fi stuff. I can't get into it. A lot of people didn't like it. For some reason, Oculus was like my worst film. I don't know why people hated the film. And listen, I get it. Sci-fi is divisive, right? Not everyone can get into sci-fi. So I was like, okay, cool. She's like, she's really like just my toughest critic. My wife is just like, I don't like that.
Most likely because she wants to see you succeed, right?
Yeah.
And you're a reflection of her,
right?
And I understand that, man. Absolutely, for sure. But the second and the third, like, what are the lengths of those movies or films?
So Hilo is 10 minutes and 44 seconds. Hilo 2 is 30 minutes and something. Graves is an hour 21, an hour 27.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Hilo 3 is an hour 30, hour 35.
So that's a big jump.
Oh yeah, and then Oculus is almost 2 hours. It's just under 2 hours. Yeah.
What about the security guard?
Over 2 hours.
Really?
Just a little over, maybe like two hours, and like the runtime should be 2 hours and 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Security Guard it's the best film I've ever made in my life. It's the best film my cast has ever made. I can't say I, because team, there's no I in team. What my cast gave to make this film was incredible. The amount of bravery it took to do what they had to do. I mean, it was 10 times 7. When you're talking about school shootings, you're talking about actors that really had to dive into certain things. I don't want to give anything away, but towards the end of the film, it got very emotional. For me, for the cast, because it was that real. And a lot of people were just like, okay, like, all right, we're gonna do this. I'm like, I need you to give me everything you have inside. Give it to me. And they were depleted. I mean, it took us 15 hours to shoot the end of the film.
Just the end.
Just the end of the film, 15 hours.
Wow. You mentioned earlier that with the locations, I want to talk about the locations that you film and how you get connections with that.
Sometimes it's just guerrilla style. Sometimes I don't ask for permission, I ask for forgiveness. That's my mantra. I just get up and just start shooting and hope for the best, to be honest with you.
But you can see in the trailer of the security guard, that there are parts that are filmed in schools. So how do you, for example, get into that school to film?
So people are very generous to let me film there. I can't get them in trouble. That's why we blacked out a lot of the exteriors of the school, because we don't, you got to get permits and stuff. And guys were very generous to let us film there. So working as a school safety agent, I had a lot of the connections with the guys, the custodial staff, and they were very nice.
I admire the guerrilla aspect of it.
You have to. Listen, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And a lot of people don't understand. They're like, Will, like, you're out of your mind. I'm like, well, it's a La Salle production. What do you expect? Expect anything and everything on a La Salle production, because it's anything goes. We're going to film. If I tell you we're filming on a yacht, we're filming on a yacht. If I tell you we're filming at an airport, we're filming at an airport. I don't know how we're doing it, but we're doing it. We filmed Oculus in the church. I wrote the whole script before I even had the church. The cast is like, how are we filming in a church? And one of the cast members goes, if Will says we're filming in a church, we're filming in a church. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Also, manifestation, law of attraction. I'm big on that. So if I believe it and I see it, it's happening, it's mine.
So what do you say is coming next? Yeah, you have 3 films. 3
films, yep. So we got Veteran, we got Lucy, we got Gravestone. And then after that, honestly, man.
That sets you up until what, 2027, 28?
Yeah, so 25 is Security Guard, 26 is Veteran, 27 Lucy, 28 is Gravestone. Everyone keeps asking me, are you gonna make a horror film? Are you gonna do another film? Honestly, 9 films in 9 years. I think I can.
Where did that come from? Where did that idea come from for the 9?
I don't know. I just said, all right, I'm gonna do 9 films. First it was 8, then it was 9. And my wife's like, you said 8, now it's 9. I don't know. Who knows? I may say 9, it may be 10. I don't know. But I think the love. Here's the thing. I don't want to lose the passion that I have for this. Right? When you continuously do something for so long, I don't want the films to suffer if my heart is not 100% in it. Right? I wouldn't do a film if I didn't 100% believe it was better than the last film. That's always the option and always the agenda for me, is to make the newest film better than the previous film. So for me, 9 films in 9 years, it's 9 years of my life. I'm like, okay, I've done that. What's next? The next thing for me to do is work on big productions, like be a director at Lionsgate, which is my goal, is to work on these big productions and bring some of the cast members I can bring on. Because at that point, I'm just making more independent films. It's not effective, right? It's like Michael Jordan. He had 6 rings. If he kept going, would it have meant more to him? No, he did 6. He was happy with 6. He bowed out. Because at that point, you continue to lose the passion, or it's like, all right, well, what am I doing here, right? I think that's good. 9 films, 9 feature films in 9 years, never been done before on any indie film scene. And no budget. You're talking about no budget, just a guy from the projects who decided to just create visions and make it a reality. That's all this is. It's just a kid who believed he could do it, and he just did.
Yeah, man, it's inspiring, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the films, actually.
I hope you come.
Yeah, I'm looking forward.
The invite, you're gonna come.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, but also the ones online that are currently online.
Check out Oculus. It's a standalone. Graves is a standalone. The Helos, you have to watch them 1, 2, 3, and you'll see the growth from them.
I'm curious. I mean that
1 is like, then 2 is like, all right, it's a little bit better. 3 is like, okay, this is really good. But people, for some reason, they hate Oculus. I don't know what it is.
So what should I, or the viewers, what should they start with?
Everyone says that my best film is Graves. So I would start with Graves. Graves you can watch for free on Tubi, Apple TV, Prime. Tubi you can watch it for free. Just watch it there.
All right.
I think you'll like that one.
Okay.
That one I'm not a good actor, so I'm
a
terrible actor. I never told anyone I'm a great actor, but everyone, my cast is like, Will, if you're acting in it, it's terrible. Okay?
Well, I appreciate you taking time. I appreciate everybody that made it to the end of this video. Thank you so much. If you are a business owner or you know any business owners or entrepreneurs that you think would be a great fit for this podcast, reach out, please, and definitely check out all the stuff from La Salle Productions. So, and check out the new movies, but also the movies that have been released previously, or the films that have been released previously. So thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Will?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
it. Thank you.